G'day folks, and this afternoon I'm going to set up my little linishing attachment. This is, I believe, an Aussie made tool that I picked up off eBay. They're about $250, so there's a bit of expense, but not too bad. And once you've got them and they're set up and working, well and truly worth it, especially if you do a bit of fabrication work and that sort of thing. Even not just metal fabrication, but woodwork and plastics, that sort of thing. You can basically grind anything with a linisher, or a belt grinder as people often call it. So I bought one. This is exactly the same one that I use at work every day. We use it in a busy machine shop, engineering shop, or I guess you call it a fabrication shop. Doing a lot of stainless steel work with the blue zircon belts. And yeah, it's basically indestructible. It's mounted to a cheap import grinder. This one isn't. This is an Australian made grinder. It's about, I don't know, 26, 27 years old. It's about as old as I am. It's Dad's first and only bench grinder that he's bought, as far as I know. Gave it to me years ago. So I'm going to bolt it onto this, and I'll show you how it works. It comes with the mounting fastener kit, which gives you it looks like you get a few extra washers and bits and pieces, as well as the clamping plates to clamp it onto the spindle. You get a couple of cheap pads, or a cheap sanding disc and a cheap linishing belt, which will do for starters. But that's the most important part. You need to make sure that you can line that up with, say, 3 holes like that. Look at that, perfect. The grinder's very old, but still has a industry standard pattern on it. And then that will get clamped by that plate. Has to go about there. Okay, well, the bracket's on there. Not the easiest thing to get lined up, especially because it's just 2 pressed metal surfaces that fit together. I do find you often have to loosen them off and tap them around a bit and clamp them back down again. Particularly if your camber levers all the way to one side and the belt's still trying to run off or run hard against the side of this pulley. Yeah, they do require a little bit of tweaking, but so far this one seems to be going together pretty well. It has to go that way. Yeah, that's the Camber adjustment lever. It rotates the front wheel left or right so that you can, or clockwise, counterclockwise, to keep the belt tracking straight. You can also loosen these 2 8mm bolts off a bit and also twist the front of the arm a little bit. So it's completely adjustable. It's not too bad, but yeah, it just takes a little bit of fiddling around to get it to run right, and then you're pretty much good. Not quite ready for that, I don't think, but yeah, the instructions are fairly clear. Yeah, it's not really, it's not that hard to install at all. I know I'm breaking a man rule by reading the instructions, but it's kind of important. I've actually mainly got the instructions out for the video. It's been a while since I've installed one of these. I've installed 2 of them and used them plenty of times, but still getting the bolt pattern and the main plate mounted on the right way is the most crucial thing. Everything else just sort of goes together. Yeah, so this arm bolts on first, then the main pulley, and then you can start doing everything up and adjusting everything. Not hard, and they work very well. Okay, well, the arm and the pulley's on. Wasn't too hard to get it on there, just had to clean the shaft up with a bit of emery cloth and slip straight on, which is very good. So next is to adjust, or fit the belt and retest it. Like, I've spun it over by hand and it seems to track okay. There is a fair bit of tracking adjustment on it now. You just got to set that to, what does it say? It's like an 8mm gap or something. 8mm gap between the backing plate and the pulley itself, and you're generally pretty much square, and you can fine tune it with the camber adjustment. Anyway, let's I'll put the cover for the disc grinder on there. Funny thing is there's no steady rest plate for the disc grinder. I might have to make one of them, but I'll at least cover that. And yeah, we'll look at fine tuning things. Okay, so after much fiddling around, I finally got it tracking right. The 6mm gap thing varies depending on how well this plate lines up on its little. It's only pressed metal fit, so it's hit and miss. You're better off leaving the two big screws in the back here loose, like not loose, but just nip them up a little bit and just give it a gentle tap left or right as you jog the motor, and it will come straight. Like, as you can see, there's still a gap between the shoulder of the drive pulley and the outer lip, so that's good. And it's also covering the whole of the idler tyre, if maybe a little bit off this side. That's better. I mean, it'll probably change when I get some better belts. These ones here are really floppy. They're just cloth with abrasive on them. The zircon metalworking belts that I use are much stiffer, far more rigid, like they're actually reinforced with glass fibre or rayon or something like that. They're a lot like a timing belt. They don't stretch or distort all that easily. So I'm going to be buying a few packs of them to keep in stock and use. But for now, this test belt will do, and if I do have to readjust, it's not hard at all. I'm going to put a very basic sheet metal cowling over the top of the wire wheel, just so that if any wires come off, they don't come straight out and hit me in the face. Even with full glasses on, getting hit with stray wires hurts, so I'm going to cover that, or even cover the back, just to prevent some of the dust getting in these plastic tubs. Unfortunately, this is the only spot that I've got to set this machine up, so I just got to live with it. But yeah, wire wheel might even come off. I might even put a polishing mop back on there. I've got a stitched mop as well as a loose cloth mop like that one there. I need another spindle. I need the left-hand spindle, I think. That's a right-hand spindle. But it won't fit the left-hand thread, so that one originally went on that side. Not interchangeable, but I can certainly buy another one. They're not all that expensive. But yeah, wire wheel's definitely handy. It's just very close to my tooling grinder, so you know I can still work on small objects. Big objects, I'll put the 5-inch wire wheel on the angle grinder and just do them outside. But for small objects, I'm just going to put a little cowling over here, leave it at that. A linisher, I don't need a cowling or anything. These things work really well. They just throw a bit of dust off behind them and below them. So it's just a matter of good housekeeping. Keep the shop vac handy. It'll probably end up living down there for this reason. And yeah, these things are an awesome tool. They are well worth the $250 that they cost. And yeah, I hope you all enjoy it. Thanks for watching. You do get some spare parts, but they're mainly for adapting to smaller grinder shafts. Like that's a reducer bushing for the shaft, which I didn't need because this one runs a 5/8 inch shaft as opposed to a 1/2 inch shaft. And again, that's a 1/2 inch clamp washer versus the 5/8 inch that I've used. So most of this stuff is extras to adapt to other models of grinder. And yeah, obviously they fit old grinders and new. Very good. Oh yeah, another thing I forgot to mention adjusting is this plate here. This allows you to use the top of the belt. Well, flat grinding essentially. Like if I wanted to grind the anodizing off this heatsink flat, just do that. So yeah, it was sitting high and causing a lot of clatter from the joint in the belt hitting it. It's a lot quieter now. a lot better. Another thing I need to do is modify this stand. Even though it's very well bolted down, there's just flex in this base plate, so the whole thing wiggles back and forth. I'm going to put a length of steel tubing down to a plate at the back, just the same diameter, even smaller, even just a bit of 25 by 50 stainless RHS with a flat plate, and just put a diagonal leg back there and weld it on. So it's actually got a diagonal brace, because right now it's too flimsy. You have to be able to push this in to change the belt. You just engage that lock as you're pushing it in. It takes 2 hands. And the other thing is, if you're working on it, it can start to wiggle back and forth. So yeah, it's getting a diagonal brace even all the way back to where that timber support is down there. That timber cross brace is. So yeah, let's make this thing completely rigid. I know it reduces a bit of storage room behind it, but again, I don't really want to put too much behind it because it's just going to end up covered in shit anyway. I'd rather keep that area open for a vacuum cleaner or something like that, a dust extractor. That's a good idea. I'll actually get a canister dust extractor.